in the back continue to get their food. We don't want to continue to enjoy yours. My name is Michelle Keeley, and I'm chair of the Board of Trustees. I'm delighted this morning to be here with you. And I'm delighted particularly to introduce Ann Stavney, Blake's new head of school. July marks the one-year anniversary of Ann's arrival at Blake and in the Twin Cities. The Board of Trustees is very pleased that she's here. By way of introduction, I'd like to tell a short story. Ann recently spoke at the Blake Middle School graduation where she prompted students to think carefully and selectively about what they would like to take with them from the journey in middle school to their next destination, the upper school. In these remarks, she encouraged students to bring both wisdom from their middle school experiences and the best parts of themselves. Borrowing from this analogy, I will share what I think Ann has brought to Blake. Ann has brought 24 years of leadership and management experience in the middle school, at the high school, collegiate, and graduate school levels. Ann has been a teacher. She has led a middle school. She's been an academic dean. She has been an assistant head of school at a top-tier independent school, Lakeside in Seattle. Ann has also led admissions and financial aid and global programs. Ann also brought with her to Blake a core commitment to academic excellence and a track record of distinguished results as both a scholar and a leader. Ann has brought steadfast integrity. She has brought an extraordinary work ethic. She has also brought a demonstrated history of collaboration and inclusiveness. In addition, Ann has brought a deep respect for Blake and a strong desire to be here and to be part of our community. Last but certainly not least, Ann has brought her beautiful family, her husband Dan and her daughter Grace. Please join me in thanking Ann Stavney for choosing Blake, for bringing her wisdom and her experiences to our school, and for speaking with us this morning. Thank
you. Thank you, Michelle. And thanks to all of you for coming out this morning. I know it's kind of bright and early. One of you remarked to me as I came in, don't worry if you all start kind of drifting off and looking out the window. It's because there's a beautiful skyline. So I will take that to heart. And again, thank you for being here. It's lovely to see people I recognize as well as new faces. As you might imagine, over the course of this year, I've met lots and lots of people. And as I start meeting people again, and knowing things about them, it's lovely because it really makes me feel at home and increasingly connected to this community. So again, thank you for being here. I wanted to make a few remarks this morning about my first year here at Blake and what I've discovered and what I really value. I've been in a lot of different educational environments, and there are things unique to Blake that I wanted to share with you from my perspective that I think make the community and the educational environment particularly remarkable, and how I see us building on those strengths as we go forward. So I'd like to just start with tell you about a short exchange I had with my daughter Grace, who just turned 5. A few weeks ago. She said to me, and we're driving on our way to campus. She's just finished. She graduated from pre-K a couple of weeks ago, and then we'll be on to kindergarten, I'm happy to say. And she said to me, Mama, I want to go back to my old school, Evergreen, which is in Seattle. Me, my heart kind of clutching, like, are you unhappy at Blake? And she said, yes. So I'm thinking, oh gosh, here we are. So I say to her, could you tell me why? What is it that you don't like or doesn't feel right? Grace says, pause. The play loft at Blake has a ladder. The play loft at Evergreen has stairs to it. I like stairs better. So I think part of what we do, and I had a moment of great relief there. I was like, okay, we can handle that. That's not significant. I think part of what we do when we come to some place new is we learn to distinguish what makes that place itself and what makes that place special and unique and wonderful. And we're really not looking to distinguish the ladder from the stairs. we look for what's important. There's a loft there. There's a play loft, there's a reading loft that says something about the approach to young children and education. And we don't want to get hung up on the steps versus the ladder. Rain versus snow, salt water versus fresh water, I mean, all sorts of really more superficial elements of a different community and educational environment. What's important, I've discovered, and I think many of you have probably experienced in your life as well, is to take the place on its own terms and discover what's wonderful about it. And over the past year, I've discovered many remarkable elements of Blake. And I'd like to highlight 3 qualities here this morning and describe why I find them so remarkable and why I think they provide the foundation for our work ahead and for meeting the goals that we've set for ourselves as a community in the future. The first element is the nature of the relationship between teachers and students at Blake. When I've gone out and met with alums, whether it's in San Francisco or in Washington, D.C. or New York, over and over alums ask about particular teachers, describe the special relationship they had with those teachers. And this is, 20, 30 years later. One, in fact, that I talked with, she's about 30 years out, she says, oh yeah, I have Bob Teslo on my speed dial. I talk to him about, every couple of weeks. And I thought, wow, that really says something about the sense of connection and ongoing relationship that our students have with their teachers. You go to a Blake alum's wedding, there'll be 10 to 15 Blake faculty and staff there. That says something about the bonds and the depth of connection that our teachers and students have. You go past any dean's office at the upper school at a given time in the day, there'll be backpacks everywhere. They park their stuff there. And then kids lounging all over. And I think many of you know our deans are those who mete out the discipline. They are the folks that also support our students when things are really difficult. The fact that our students find that place a comfortable location to be, to chat, to do their homework says something, again, about the relationship between our teachers and our students. A couple weeks ago, there was a kindergarten child on the stage, and she had some tears near the end of the program. And within seconds, her kindergarten teacher was up there on the stage comforting her. And so that says the teacher is in the audience looking at her kids, and one of them has tears. The first thing she's going to do is get up there and give her a hug. And of teachers spending, I know several examples of teachers spending one-on-one time with students every day for weeks on end to assist them with whatever it is going on in their lives, whether it's an academic challenge or a social emotional issue that they're wanting to touch base. And you see the whole senior class singing a Celine Dion song for their senior class dean, who is named Dion, and to express their affection. And I watched this, it was really quite amazing. And then at commencement, you hear the senior class dean, named Dion, characterizing the relationship he has had with those 129 seniors as love. So these relationships, I think, teacher to student, they're inspiring, they're motivating, they're respectful, and they're fundamentally transformative of our students and our community. So we have the nature of the relationship between teachers and students. I would say a second element of Blake that makes it really remarkable to me is that students are known by adults. They are known for who they are, for who they can become, for their potential. So if I sit in at a student support team meeting in the lower school, and that's a gathering of faculty and administrators and counselors, I will hear them discuss a student for 20, 30 minutes. This might be a student who's running into some, difficulty or some hiccups academically, socially, emotionally. This is the nature of the conversation. How did she do in the free reading time yesterday in class? And one of them will respond, You all need to know what happened to the family pet last Sunday. Who did she play with at recess? Mom was out of town earlier in the week. I think that's why her homework didn't make it in her backpack. And near the end of these meetings, the assembled group will always come up with a summary. What are we noticing? What progress has the student made? Where do we see continued need for support? Again, academic, social, emotional. And what action steps will we take between now and next week when we meet again? So the depth of knowledge of each student and how to support him or her in its fullness, what's happening at home, what's happening at school, what's happening with classmates, I think is really quite remarkable. In my own family, we ran into a rough patch with our daughter Grace, who is in pre-K this year, as I mentioned earlier. We received a daily email from her teacher for 3 weeks, cataloging, each, noting her affect, noting her accomplishments, and noting her missed opportunities, which I loved, and she had quite a few of them there for a while. And then at the end of each term, we received 5 single-space typed pages noting Grace's progress and performance in 8 different domains. Again, the level of detail and the level of knowledge of her, and I feel it's indicative of the level of knowledge our teachers have of all of our students, was quite remarkable. And I think in all 3 of our divisions, lower school, middle school, upper school, our teachers and administrators know our students. And they do all they can to both challenge them and support them as unique yet whole individuals. Third element of Blake, which I've come to see manifested in so many areas of the community, is that students are raised in a community, in a culture that values respectful, considerate, and ethical behavior. It is modeled daily by Blake adults, by teachers, staff, coaches, mentors, and it is also modeled daily by their classmates. And I see I'm in on most all of the disciplinary decisions that happen when a student has a misstep or makes a poor decision, and how they are interacted with and what is expected of them to learn from that incident. And so I think ethical conduct is also reinforced through how our adults handle adolescent missteps. And I see, and I thought about as we had upper school commencement several weeks ago, every one of those 129 students, I could think of aspects of their experience that demonstrate that they graduate with a deep ethical core. And the senior speech program is one aspect, I think, of demonstrating that. So they learn to speak a personal truth, to take a stand for something, and to share that truth with confidence and consideration with their community of learners. And if you read through Voices in the Auditorium, the collection of speeches that are published each year is quite remarkable. Again, the respectful, the considerate, and the ethical core that is demonstrated in what the seniors articulate upon they leaving Blake. So these 3 elements of the Blake community stand out for me, and I continue to see examples virtually everywhere I look for of those 3 elements of the Blake community. It makes me really deeply gratified to be part of Blake, and it inspires me to be part of Blake, because finally when we look at our students crossing the stage, that's what we want for them. We want them to feel challenged and supported and have a deep respect and consideration for themselves and for each other. So it makes me believe in the school. Michelle Keeley talks about so-and-so bleeds Blake blood. I think I do, and it's because I really believe in the school. At its core, we have what it takes to educate students to be good people and successful contributing members of our community. I think we therefore do have the critical foundation, the core, that we can build on going forward. So I just wanted to highlight two of the priorities going forward that make me kind of catapult out of bed in the morning and say, yeah, okay, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, and make me really excited about the progress that we've made even just in 1 year and what we have ahead. So the first is strengthening academic excellence. And Michelle said a little bit about my background. I'm finally a teacher at heart. I love thinking and talking about curriculum, how we teach and how we learn, and how we do that at the highest level. As we think about curriculum in 2013, we think about curriculum, it is excellent, it is stimulating if it's focused on how to think critically and creatively. So if the old model of education is to think about knowledge acquired, memorized, and then demonstrated through a test or some sort of reflection of that knowledge, we've moved to a new model where curriculum teaches students how to think creatively and critically, how to communicate, how to collaborate, and above all, how to apply that knowledge and those skills in a demonstration of learning. And that is a notion, an aspect of academic excellence that we're continuing to delve deeper into and to strengthen across the school. Second element of academic excellence are the teaching methods, pedagogy. And those are teaching methods that make best use of educational technology. It's informed, our methods are informed by the latest research in how students learn. We know more and more about how students learn and how they can learn, how they learn, and how we fold that then into our curriculum is critical in deepening our academic excellence. So again, if the old model of education focused on individuals learning a body of knowledge and then reflecting that, the new model centers on instruction in a collaborative and a project-based learning context. And we're also making good progress in a number of areas in creating this context in a curriculum that supports this type of learning. I worked with Rand Harrington and a few others in the room earlier this year to develop what we call a summer curriculum grant initiative, and it's a fund. Very excited. We have 9 groups of teachers, 34 individuals working this summer on a summer curriculum grant. And the purpose of this grant program is for teachers to work together collaboratively and essentially leapfrog forward in the curriculum where they have devoted time together and they schedule that in. They'll spend 4 or 5 days taking on a project like designing a new 6th grade humanities course, an interdisciplinary course. It's not the kind of course that you can just kind of refresh or tinker with. It needs redesign from the bottom up, and so they will be spending time doing that. We have 2 new upper school computer science courses that we'll be offering. We have a group working on how do we want to teach that course? How do we want to make it collaborative and project-based? And how do we want to make it accessible and exciting for students so that they will continue understanding and being inspired to learn computer science? We have a whole range of summer curriculum grants where teachers are working together to implement and to make manifest this latest research in how students learn in collaborative project-based learning, and also in creative ways of using educational technology throughout their courses. So that's one aspect of professional development that we have moved forward this year, which I see very directly tied to deepening academic excellence. I mentioned some of the courses that we are developing, offering computer programming for the first time, a new math curriculum in the lower school, K through 5. We looked at, over the course of the last several years, a team looked at what we were doing and where we saw gaps, and this fall they will implement a new math curriculum. We're very excited about how it, again, takes advantage of latest research on how students learn and also takes advantage of the collaborative, project-based model of teaching. I mentioned the new Interdisciplinary Humanities course. And then I want to underscore how exciting I find it that we are opening the new Center for Science, Design, and Research. It's on target, under budget for the moment, and we are working hard on that too. It'll open on August 15th, and we're so thrilled that on August 28th, when our students come back, we will be able to take advantage of all that this facility has to offer. And what makes this facility remarkable is that it gives us the space, the physical space, and the materials to conduct the discovery-based learning and teaching, to engender collaborative work among students, and also for teachers and students together to conduct authentic research projects. So the space allows us, again, to strengthen our academic excellence and the experience that our students are having. And we'll be offering more tours soon. If any of you want to come out and see it, I know a number of you have seen it in progress, so we'd love to have you visit. So I described some of the goals we have in strengthening academic excellence. Let me talk about the second aspect of, or second goal, I would say, that really I am very, very passionate about, and I'm very excited at the progress that we've made this year. And that is around increasing access to Blake, so that we ensure we are attracting and we are yielding the most talented students in the city to our school. This year, the board and the administrative team worked hard to restructure our financial aid budget and to lift, to enlarge, I would say, or lift the cap on the amount of financial aid that we distribute. And we're in the process of rethinking our model for financial aid, and a number of schools across the country have done this, to move from thinking of financial aid as something we pay out and instead consider net revenues. What is each family contributing? So that we're looking at a range of financial aid awards, or instead thinking about flexible tuition model. It's a different way of thinking about financial aid that I think is much more helpful in reaching the goals that we want to. So we have committed ourselves to a middle class outreach initiative, demonstrating to middle class families around the Twin Cities that Blake is a place, if they have intellectually capable young people, Blake is a place that they can come to and they can afford. We're interested also in achieving a student population that is both diverse and academically excellent at every grade and division of the school. And I keep coming back to a quotation from Neil Rudenstein. He's the former president of Harvard University, and he has commented that diversity is not an end in itself or a pleasant but dispensable accessory. It is the substance from which much human learning, understanding, and wisdom derive. So we have many other goals for the future, but right now, as I mentioned, these are two that make me very excited, make me fly out of bed and excited to see how can we move forward. And we are truly building on our strengths, and I feel really proud to be part of this chapter in Blake's history. So thank you. And I would be glad to entertain questions that you might have. Yes.
I'd like to start all over again.
Sure.
It's great underneath your.
Thank you.
Just a lowly salesman.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, sure. Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
I've been reading in the New York Times this fascinating debate about how we should be teaching math.
Yes.
And if you're familiar with that.
I am. Mm-hmm.
So those guys are taking that into account.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, basically what it was is when we were taught arithmetic open and follow. Anyway,
Right.
it's a
Yeah.
path,
Yeah, it is.
and I'm glad to hear that they're talking about how to proceed.
Yeah.
with that.
And I think it's what administrators in independent schools fondly call the math wars.
Yeah.
You know, how do we teach math? And people have very strong feelings about math. And what we do know, and I think is fundamental to building our new math curriculum in the lower school, is that students learn math differently. So one model of teaching is, or one way of doing it, the way we might have learned, or you know, somebody else, that in itself is incomplete. So teachers need to teach a range of ways of solving problems, of learning one's math facts, of showing one's work. But there needs to be a range of ways because, as we know, students don't learn the same way. And so this is what we call differentiated learning, and being sure that we present a variety of methods as we teach math. And that applies as well to other disciplines. Again, there are some students who just soak it up and get it like that in a certain way. In others, that if they were taught a different way of learning, they would also be right along with the class. So that's what kind of the wisdom that I take from the current math wars. Yeah, sure. Yes.
I've heard the comment, even criticism, that secondary school education in the United States does not give sufficient emphasis to our own history. And I wonder what the situation today is at Blake in that respect.
Yes. So I've heard that comment as well, and I think that's likely coming out of the increasing emphasis on global history and learning more about the world, about world religions, world cultures, world economics, and that certainly is critical for our students to understand the U.S. in the context of larger global trends and economics. We do teach U.S. history at a number of different points in the curriculum, in 7th grade in particular, again in 10th grade. And so students learn U.S. history, certainly. And they also, just this past spring, a group of seniors did a project, juniors and seniors did a project on Blake's history. And they dug through the archives and took on a particular topic of interest to them. It might be the merger, it might be a particular individual and his leadership style, or it might be any number of things, athletics. And so I think increasingly we recognize not only the importance of knowing U.S. history, but also Blake's history and the Minneapolis Twin Cities community. So yes, it is something we're constantly trying to balance as we have more and more that we're including in our curriculum in regard to the world, but making sure students know where they come from and what is their own history. Yeah. Yes. Hi, Kate.
Broader question.
Sure.
How do you see the future of private school education in the secondary level, the cost, and being financially viable in the future?
I think that it's a question that we're all asking ourselves, and I think that we continue to, I talked about the financial aid model. You're always balancing with independent school, you're balancing the cost of tuition with so tuition for families, you're balancing that with what you pay to have top teachers in the school. That's our largest expense, is faculty and staff salaries. And so we want to maintain the highest quality, and we want to have the most talented students who come from across the socioeconomic spectrum at the school. And so we look to a pretty common way to think about this now is to look to other sources of revenue. So for example, this summer we've had a complete reshaping of our summer programs at Blake. We're a good $100,000 to the positive and greater than we ever have been. from that reshaping. So we look to other sources of revenue. We have a number of other ideas. And then, of course, the annual fund is very important. And we also are looking to a campaign in the future. And that is mainly to enlarge our endowment, because, of course, that's how you have a financially sustainable model, is an endowment that continues to grow. And I have to say, I've been deeply impressed with the stewardship of Blake's endowment as I've been part of the investment committee meetings over the course of this year. And our conservatism, which I think is very appropriate in building that endowment to sustain the school for the future. Hi.
I'm heartened to hear that you're focusing on the fact that everybody learns in a different way. And so, and as somebody who has both the Woolmans and Rod Anderson,
Yeah.
35 years later on my speed dial, I really will think about the teachers as first and foremost. I know they shaped me much more than even my classmates.
Yeah.
Shaped me much more than my college experience, and very much need to have this interesting, dynamic, well-paced people who can get so that they can respond to the hundreds of different personalities in the class. And I'm so happy also that there's a woman head of the school now. And I really hope that the things you're talking about really makes me happy.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to see you here. She was, in fact, Andrea, right? Yes, the person who had Bob Tesla on her speed dial. So, yeah, it's nice to see you. Thank you. And I agree with you. I mean, our faculty are the core of the school. I mean, our students come in and come and go, which is wonderful and appropriate. But our faculty and our staff is who carry the culture and who also continue to grow themselves. And that's why we're putting a great deal of emphasis on professional development to assist faculty in developing and staying up to date with the latest research in differentiated instruction, for example. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yeah, I have kind of a little bit of a philosophical difficulty with this knowing the students.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. It sounds a little uncomfortable to me.
Okay.
That teachers know their students that much, socially, emotionally. I mean, it's almost like it's almost a little like an outgrowth of the helicopter parenting, where there's so much focus on this child that he or she doesn't have the freedom to like commit some errors and kind of venture outside what's known, and what it produces is kind of a hothouse grown-up who's so self-involved that going out into the world is a difficulty. And I don't know. So I don't know what you can respond to that, but I just think there's a bit of a problem with it.
Mm-hmm. I think I can understand how those are coming together for you, the kind of over support. I think the way we look at it is that in order for students to succeed at school, they need to be supported fully. Many of them, we all have lives outside of our, school day, and students even more so. And so being able to support them, because they're growing socially and emotionally, being able to support them socially and emotionally allows them to succeed and thrive academically. We can't separate those out. Now, my suggestion, I didn't mean to say that we have a whole bunch of helicopter, or another phrase is a snowplow administrators kind of plowing out the way. I mean, our students make their healthy and appropriate, share of missteps. And what we try to do is be aware enough of what's going on in their lives that we're able to support them in making good choices, and then when they haven't, then also support them in learning from it. And particularly with the youngest children, a lot of what's happening at home and on the playground shapes their potential to be fully present in class. So it's in that context that we want to ensure we're not just thinking of the child as just a walking little brain, but a brain and a heart and a body that are we're tending to all of that child when we think about how best to support them. So,
What do you define as middle class?
that's a great question, and absolutely, and that's where the school I came from. We actually did a survey of families, and as you might imagine, it's a pretty delicate subject, but we had an outside organization do a survey of the financial position of every family in the school to get a sense of who are the folks. In independent schools, and this applies as well to Blake, the middle class of our community is a great deal higher than the middle class of the U.S. Absolutely. And what we look at when we're considering a financial aid award is how many students a family might have in a tuition charging school. So we look at that as an important element. And the larger point is that right now we have students, we have somewhat of a barbell effect. So we have students whose families have 70-80% of financial aid, tuition covered. And then we have many other families who pay the full tuition. Those who are in between, who a smaller financial aid award would be helpful, or to put it differently, back with the flexible tuition model, if they were to pay 2/3 or half of the tuition and Blake covers the other, we have a lot fewer in that in between. And there are a lot of reasons for that. I think largely it's that we haven't gotten word out that in fact they would qualify for aid. At $175,000 a year family income, they would qualify for aid. They don't know that. In fact, it's MCAD. If you go to their home page and you look up, how much does it cost to go to the school there, you can plug in your family income and it spits out how much aid you would get. And the point of doing that is that we don't turn away families, or families turn away themselves thinking there's no way we could afford this. We're in the middle class, we won't get aid, but we can't afford the whole tuition. So we want to ensure that we're attracting and yielding the best, most talented students, and not have finances be a barrier to those families, those students, in applying. So, well, I'm getting the hook here. Let's do one more question. Peter, thank you.
And there's been, for a number of years, a criticism about schools and the matriculation of students to college that they don't know how to write. And for many of us, we were weaned on writing practically every single day.
Yeah.
Could you comment on the criticism and what Blake may be doing to respond to that criticism?
Yes, thank you. This is a subject dear to my heart as a lapsed English teacher. I would say, first off, Blake is doing an excellent job teaching our students how to write. And I hear that over and over from our alums as they go off to college and I meet with them or they come back for a visit. They feel very well prepared in their writing. And the reason why is I think we're very deliberate in how we teach writing. And so we teach writing for a range of purposes. We teach writing for students to learn how to inform, how to persuade, how to describe, how to reflect, how to argue. And so they're given the opportunity to develop a whole range of writing skills and contexts throughout their curriculum. One development in writing instruction over the last 20 years or so is the emphasis that's been put on finding one's own voice as a writer. And that often translates into doing a lot of creative writing, so that students feel that they can find their voice, they can use language creatively, and they can innovate essentially. Sometimes in some places, and I think this is where the criticism has come from, that notion or the emphasis on writing creatively has kind of taken over, and that becomes the curriculum. And so students don't get practiced at write a 5-page paper taking a stand on this particular issue, or write a 10-page paper where you research something, whatever it might be. They're not practiced at that. They don't know how to construct an argument and how to write a thesis and how to amass evidence to support that thesis. And so I think we are being very deliberate about helping students find their voice in writing, which is largely the emphasis in middle school, as they learn to speak and use words, again, to reflect their reality. And as we move into the upper school, and it's appropriate that we do this, we move more into critical writing, in the sense of critical thinking through writing and for a range of writing purposes. I feel very good about where we are at Blake in how we prepare students, not only for college, but to go out into the world and communicate effectively in writing. Okay, well, thank you all very much. Really appreciate you coming here this morning.